Welcome to the Three Gun Show. I'm your host, Dave Hartman. This is episode 314. It's the Pie episode. And we've got a special guest on the show today, and that is Adam Reiser. How are you doing? How's your week going? It's Wednesday. If you're listening to this when it comes out, it's hump day. Everything going all right? You staying healthy? How are your New Year's resolutions? Are you keeping up with them? Crickets. If you're like most people, you just completely fell off the wagon in the last week here. But if you did, I'm giving you permission to get back on. So if you stop dry firing, pick the gun back up and dry fire again. If you miss the gym, go back to the gym. It's okay. Everybody makes mistakes. Get back in there. It's going to be a good one. 2022 is going to be good. I can feel it. I got some cool stuff planned. There's already been some cool stuff happening. And again, our buddy Adam Reiser is back on the podcast. So yeah, on that note, Adam reached out recently to let me know that I had to talk about the PCSL two-gun championship on the show. And I was like, hey, dude, you just volunteered. So Adam's back on the show here. And if you recall the PCS League, which used to be the PSL, which I kind of liked calling it the Pumpkin Spice Latte League, as you know, affectionately. It's the Practical Competition Shooting League, and that was started by Max Leograndis in 2020. Max knows a little bit about shooting, wouldn't you say? Max is a very competent shooter and trainer, and now a match runner, which is really exciting. And I had Max on the show in episode 304 to talk about his upcoming match. So today we get to hear the perspective of a shooter that actually shot the match, which is really cool. So Adam Reiser is also a shooter and instructor and stuff like that. So it's great to hear his perspective on it. And he always comes prepared, and you can hear it in this one. He definitely came prepared for this one. In fact, he reached out to Max and asked several questions about some upcoming matches. So we got some exclusive information here as well. So one more thing before we get going into that little interview. I just built, or rebuilt rather, my three-gun rifle, my 2022 three-gun rifle. For some reason, we got to change rifles every year. I'm stacking them up like cordwood over here. But I filmed the entire process, and I cut a video for the YouTube channel. So if you're interested in that kind of thing, if you want to see how I build a three-gun rifle, incorporating all the advice that I've learned over the years by doing this podcast, go to the Three Gun Show's YouTube channel. Check it out. I'll put a link in the show notes at threegunshow.com/314. It's about 22 minutes long, just to give you a heads up. So maybe make a snack, grab a cold beer or something. But I'm really proud of this one. So check it out. I think it turned out pretty well. It's got a lot of tips and tricks that I've learned over the years. A lot of fun jokes, which I, as you probably know from listening to this podcast, I really enjoy. So if you like it, let me know. You can leave a comment over there and all that jazz. And yeah, in the meantime, enjoy this interview with Adam Reiser. Adam, welcome back to the show.
It's good to be back, man. How you been?
I've been good, dude. We've had some winter weather here in Wyoming, and I shoveled a driveway for the first time, and I can't recall how long, and it was exciting.
Yeah, I'm in full snowblowerville in Salt Lake here. You absolutely, like, snowblower is completely mandatory for where I live. You'd never shovel the driveway.
Yeah. Yeah, there was so I'm renting, and there was a shovel when I got here, which I think was strategic. So that's how we do it.
Awesome.
Yeah,
awesome.
It's great. I got a dog that's up to his belly in snow and walking around and enjoying all of it, wondering where all the things are that he used to sniff and smell, and he's making little tracks in the backyard like figure eights and stuff. It's a good time.
Yeah, Murphy does the same.
Yeah.
Nice.
So what have you been up to other than snow blowing?
I have been injured and or sick pretty much for about 2 months straight now. So it's been a lot of rehab time. I did in my back a bit ago, and threw away a climbing trip and have been basically just doing rehab for 2 months straight. But
so what happened to your back?
I popped a disc in my lower back and my C6, I think, and then dislocated 2 ribs. And I had that, that feeling where, you're like 90 seconds away from throwing up and there's nothing you can do about it.
Yeah.
I basically had that for like 5 weeks straight.
Oh, no.
And what it actually was my C6 pressing into the back of my throat and causing this weird gag reflex. And it was a real bummer. It was not fun at all. And it was kind of making me a little crazy, if I'm being very honest. But I did get healthy enough to shoot a match down in St. George during that time. So at least I got some little reprieve from it.
Man, I'm sorry to hear that. We need to get you one of those tents like Michael Jackson had that you can sleep in and regenerate overnight.
I'll take it. I'm on board. If there's any barometric, or it wouldn't be a barometric pressure tent. That'd be I'm not sure what Michael Jackson slept in. Who the hell knows? I don't speculate.
Well, I've done extensive research and I have plans, so we'll talk offline about it.
So yeah, hook me up, dude. I'm on board.
Well, so Adam, you reached out to me a couple of days ago, and you said that hey, if you're taking topics for the show, the match a shot was really cool. I like the format, and I'd like to talk about it. And I thought, well, heck, why not? It's something cool happening in the practical shooting space, and we like to talk about stuff like that. So here we are. And it was the PCSL 2-gun championship, and so. If y'all remember, Max Leargranis was on the podcast recently, or I guess recently in podcast talk, but it was back in November, talking about the practical shooting league, which I've been calling the PSL League, Pumpkin Spice Latte League, and he's added a C in there, so it's now the Practical Competition Shooting League, which I like much better. There was
another shooting league that was kind of PRS-y style that was the PSL. So something had to get added or removed.
Oh, no kidding. Yep. So is that like the Precision Shooting League or something like that?
Something like that, yeah.
Interesting.
So some little club match series out east. I'm not 100% sure. He explained it very shortly, but yeah, it was like, we had to add a letter.
Well,
it happens. It's all good.
Now you can't call it like the basic match, which I was calling the PSL, because Pumpkin Spice Latte. That's just the most basic thing out there, right?
Yeah, I think that's pretty basic.
Well. Anyway, so it's the Practical Competition Shooting League. So this is pretty exciting because as we're recording this and it's going to come out next week, Max has announced several events that are upcoming for 2022 for the PCSL, including a carbine championship, a night match, a 3-gun championship, which is kind of interesting. I was not expecting that, and then 2 other tentative matches coming up. So we're going to be talking about the 2-gun championship that you shot in December, and the format, the style, the gear stuff, what you liked, what you didn't like, and all the other goodness to come along with it.
Yeah. And so Kyle was on the show. Actually, right after I sent that, Kyle's show came out, and you guys were talking about it, and I was like, oh man, I hope he doesn't steal all the thunder. But yeah, so he talked a lot about it on there, and he was super on board, and for a really good reason. And he talked a lot about the reasons for that, Max's vision for this thing is essentially, kind of rejuvenating, really just the culture of competition shooting. And there's been a lot of sort of back and forth that, the people who started all these matches are getting a little long in the tooth. And there's, some things that exist, whether it's, division rules or safety rules or scoring systems or whatever that, just don't really make a whole lot of sense anymore with the state of guns being what they are in 2021. And, a lot of, like USPSA influence into multi-gun in places that just don't make sense and things along those lines. And a lot of people getting, DQ'd for totally random stuff. To answer, your guys' question from the last episode, you were right, it was Mike Bauer. That,
yes.
Safety officer. Well, he didn't even step out of the box. It was just like a weird little nervous twitch that he did, like as he's making ready, where he squared up and he went click, click, and they DQ'd him from the match for
Oh,
like,
wow.
standing in the ready position, ready to say ready, and went off on. And they didn't actually end up DQing him because there wasn't anything in the rules. And then the next year, they specifically added a rule that would let them DQ somebody for that, because that's obviously so dangerous.
Yeah.
I mean, anything could have happened.
Well, I've never met Mike Bauer, but I bet just by that name, yeah, he seems like a danger to
he's a sketchy guy. He's a danger to himself and everybody around
everyone he knows.
Yeah, for sure.
Yep.
So I've shot quite a bit with Mike. He's a good guy.
Is he? Yeah. So Mike was a Patreon supporter of the Three Gun Show back when we did that, and he was really active in the private Facebook group we had. So he's definitely a contributor to the community and everything, and also he's rolling the cars. So I kind of like him for that. Yeah. But
yeah, he's our kind of people.
Yeah, for sure. So that's interesting to know. And may I add that there seems to be a culture or I don't know, man. It kind of goes back to what we were talking about before we even started here. And for everyone who is now listening, wasn't listening before. So it was basically, we're talking about how society has changed over like the last, say, 70 years and stuff like that. And economics and politics a little bit, I guess. And there seems to be an attitude of like, fuck you, we know better. Amongst the people that are currently in quote in charge. And it goes back to something my friend Chris that I worked at Lockheed worked with at Lockheed. He said to me, Dave, why would you vote for someone who's not going to live long enough to realize the consequences of their actions? And in that case, he was talking about obviously the presidential election at the time, but and okay, that's enough. But
we're like 4 minutes in and we're already spooling out of control, ladies and gentlemen.
Exactly. But that I would say that like their organizations do need to like evolve and change with the times. And like you said there, I don't think I've heard that from Max or from anyone else of the state of gun culture in 2022 is not the same as it was when USPSA started or when IDPA started or when whatever. But the people that are making the rules and either stopping advancement or guiding the quote unquote advancement are people that have stagnant ideas and like they don't know what TikTok is and shit like that. So I don't know, man, I guess that's a long-winded way of saying like, yeah, it does need some new blood and some new ideas. And Max is pretty much going about it the most libertarian way possible of like build your own.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm pretty on board with it. And so kind of like big picture overview, the first thing that I really like about the match is there are two divisions in the entire thing. There, as the name suggests, there's practical, competition, shooting league. There is practical and competition.
That's cool.
The only two divisions in the 2-gun match. And there is I do have advanced copy of the 3-gun match rule set, so we can go over that a little bit. One of them hasn't happened yet, but there's going to be one of them in May. So we can cover that a little bit. That one does have 3 divisions, but a similar thing where it's, you and I were talking on the last show we did together, shooting Ironman with 400 people all intact.
Yeah. And
going back to something where, there's a few hundred people at a match and everybody's in 2 divisions instead of 9 is really, really, really nice.
Yeah, we shot the Wyoming Governor's match together, and it was like, okay, cool. There's like 5 and 6 people in some of the divisions, which is kind of a bummer. That's a point I made on the podcast we did before the end of the year. I think it was 312 where we talked about new divisions, and I recommended changing a lot of things about limited, a lot of things about TAC, and actually pretty much just opening the floodgates on open. But it took a lot of flack for that, and they're like, well, why don't you just start a new division if you're going to be changing TAC and
You're
see
like,
what
no, I
people
want
like better.
less divisions, not more divisions.
Exactly. And it's like,
Yeah.
that's a pretty good idea. However, I don't want to dilute the competition. And then, now we have 3 people in each friggin' division. It just, I don't like it.
Yeah.
There's not enough of us to have like so many damn divisions,
Yeah. And so the big thing for Max, he wanted a few things out of this, and he was basically walking around the range for, I shot the staff match, and then helped staff one of the stages for 3 days, and then so I got a bunch of time hanging out with all the staff, all the competitors, and got to kind of see everything from behind the scenes as well. And Max talked a lot about kind of what he wants out of this. It wasn't like, hey, here's the match, here's the rules, here's your stage, go. A lot of the talk wasn't on like rule clarification and how to call a perf hit or anything like that. It was on, this is what I want the competitors to come away from this match with. It was a very like, these people are paying good money to be here. I want to send them away with a really good experience and what he wants from this entire organization moving forward. And it was really, really nice to, be at a RO meeting where all of the talk was about how can we make this as good for all of the competitors as possible. And it was just completely the opposite of like just about every other RO meeting I've ever been involved in. We've all shot matches where it feels like the ROs are out to get you, and those aren't a lot of fun. And so Max is basically just trying to develop like the exact opposite of that. And then I think, the way that he's putting this whole thing together is, the reason he has the practical division and the competition division is he's really trying to kind of combine those two like shooting worlds. We've got like the Timmy world and, the gamer world. And, he's basically trying to say like, hey, we all want to do the same thing, essentially. It's ridiculous that they have to live in their camp and we have to live in our camp. Yeah. Why can't we come play together? And so that was really, excuse me, really a big driving force for all of this and trying to build, the practical division in a way that made sense, that wouldn't be like, oh, hey, you're a cop and you have your duty issue AR and your Glock pistol, which happens to have a dot on it. So now you're an open and you're shooting against $5,000 shotguns and all this other stuff. And just really building it towards, what people are making. Like if you scroll through Instagram and you look at, tactical guns, they don't fit in anything. They're not raced out enough to be real deal open race guns, but they're too raced out to live in, TAC or production or anything like that. So making that work for everybody was a big thing for his. He really wanted to create something that just like dudes can show up to, that it's simple enough that person can show up to their first match ever and be just fine and understand the rules and what they need to do, but also be technical enough that, the race at the top is really good, that people aren't, just crushing everybody by 40% on every single stage because there's a bunch of like super gamey stuff that only they know how to do. And I think he did a fantastic job with it.
I think that's a really cool thing. As we've seen with the, what the hell is it called? Carry optics division in USPSA. Like that's super popular right now, and that is where the firearms industry is going. Like AMAX made some really good points on his Instagram story about red dot slides in from Glock production. It's like their most popular model is the MOS. Like they make more MOS than they make of the other ones, which is absolutely insane to think how fast that happened.
Yeah, it didn't take long for people to figure out that, oh, wow, dots are really easy to use and they're faster and more fun.
Yeah.
We have technology, we should use it.
Exactly. Well, and that was one of the points I was making in the 3 Gun Show podcast about it, is that, the industry, the technology is going that way, and it's leaving 3 Gun behind, where 3 Gun used to lead that stuff. So if there's going to be a leader out there, it's cool that it's a, practical shooting, because that is like a test bed for tactics and stuff. One of the things you mentioned, I want to back up on though, Adam. You said he wanted to change the culture, and one of the things that I've observed from all of our 3-gun friends that have gone and shot a tactical games match is that they have a completely unique culture and completely different than what we have in 3-gun, and it's super welcoming, super encouraging, and stuff like that. So, can you describe the culture at the PCSL match you went to?
Yeah, I'd say like, when you show up to a match and your entire squad is all your friends and you're just kind of like broing down the whole time and everyone's stoked. Basically, the whole match is that. It's everybody is actually having a very legitimately good time because it's structured in a way from a rule standpoint, from the way the ROs interact with people, from the way the safety rules are written, that nobody is being screwed with in any way whatsoever. So like, safety rules are super clear where it's like, okay, you just have to be 6 feet away from a berm, facing a berm, and you can unbag a gun, unholster a gun. I saw a bunch of people get DQ'd at a USPSA multi-gun nationals a few years ago for unholstering a rifle or unholstering a pistol, standing next to a safe table, facing the berm behind the safe table, because there was somebody at the safe table, like doing something with a gun and they had to go to the bathroom. So they stood next to the safe table, took their pistol out, laid it down, and got DQ'd for it. And It's like that. It's like nobody's having fun when somebody on your squad just got the chop for something like that, right? So there is, there are things in this match that you can do to get yourself DQ'd, of course, but the safety rules are all around actual safety instead of, weird stuff like that, where it's like, well, it's written in the rule book like that. So, if you're not inside the roped area of the safe table, it's somehow super dangerous to be pointing towards the berm and unholstering a gun.
And one of the things that Kyle brought up was looking through your dot on your rifle or your PCC when you're holding it. Like if you're supposed to be holding it facing the air and you just lift it above your head and look through the dot, like how is that dangerous?
Yeah, exactly. And Max gave a bunch of examples of this at the awards ceremony and just talked, for a good amount of time about what he wants, the culture to be. And it's just, generally speaking, just way more welcoming. Not so much like the old boys club where you kind of have to know the secret handshake and you got to like serve your time and nobody respects you until you've helped set up for a half dozen matches and stuff. It's more like, hey, grab your buddy who has a Glock MOS and an AR sitting in the safe and bring him on out and he's going to have a great time. It's super simple to figure out. And the way that the stages are structured too. So the shooting's really simple, but also very hard in a different kind of way. So the target presentation, instead of like UML or a lot of 3-gun matches where there's just a bunch of optional stuff, it's really clear. Anything that's white gets shot with the rifle. So white paper, white steel, rifle target. Brown paper, pistol target. Blue steel, pistol target. So you can walk up to a stage and immediately know what you need to shoot, and it's super clear for everybody. And then there's like black hardcover and red no shoots. And then, so there's not a ton of like real optional stuff going on where it's, like in UML, for example, because there's like a 3 target minimum engagement rule, a lot of the stages basically end up being pistol stages with like 3 rifle shots at the end, right? Because you look at it as a high level competitive shooter and you're like, okay, clearly the thing to do is just shoot all of this with a pistol. And then, people who aren't there yet don't really grasp that. And they just look at this stage where there's like no description on how to shoot it. And they have like analysis paralysis and almost like don't know what to do because there's so many options. And so the stage that had the most options at this match, so stage 9, which was the car stage, had a bunch of cars, bunch of targets you shoot through windows and stuff. Then there was like 4 optional clay targets that could be shot with a rifle or a pistol. And that stage was used as part of the shoot-off, and remind me to get back to the shoot-off here at the end because it was really interesting. So that stage was used as part of the shoot-off, and I would say, so it was like the top 5 or 6 in each division, I think, shot the shoot off. And I bet we saw like at least a half dozen different stage plans among the top handful of competitors. And this times were all super tight. So there's lots of options. Now, having said that, I did this little like stage walkthrough video where I was like walking around with Jay Leese and handed her the phone. I'm like, hey, just film this really quick. I'm going to just break down this stage and we'll film it and people can see kind of the process that I use. So I did a quick stage breakdown, just talked through the process that I was using. It took me, I don't know, 6 minutes or something like that, even like kind of talking through the thing. I think the whole video ended up being like 9 minutes long. And the stage plan that I came up with in that video was what I shot in the match, and I won that stage. So even though there was like 9 options on this stage, you're still able to come up with a winning stage plan in like 5 minutes. So it's that kind of thing where you can get super gamey with it, but there's not going to be any like super secret ninja tactic that you didn't know because you're not a gamer that, I can't come up with a good example off the top of my head, but there's all kinds of like weird stuff where sometimes you see like a high level shooter stage and you're like, oh my God, it didn't even occur to me to shoot it that way. And there's none of that stuff going on here. So it's you could probably show up to this match on the day of without pre-walking any stages and win the match if you're good enough to shoot the match and win the match. Like I'm confident that Kyle could have shown up to this match on Friday without having pre-walked anything and still won the match. So
yeah, Kyle's kind of a beast.
Yeah, well, I mean, Kyle's good enough to win, and smart enough to be able to do that. And so that's a big deal to me. Is like making stuff. I mean, don't get me wrong. I love 300-minute stages in Parma or 300-second stages in Parma that, you're like dry heaving towards the end of the thing. Like I love shooting that stuff, but that's not super fun for a new guy.
Yeah.
And so this was like, it struck a really sweet balance between like hard enough that it separated the top tier talent, but not so hard that guy showing up for his first match was just getting murdered.
So are the stages then like, you mentioned there's like several ways to shoot it in options, but all the targets are completely defined. So is it like USPSA style where like you can go to the left and go around the horn to the right and go to the right and around the horn to the left? Is that what you're getting at?
Yeah, a bit of that, like sort of the engagement order. There's a lot of, because it's 2 guns, there's a lot of, you shoot from here to the left or to the right, then transition to the other gun, and then you shoot back through the same section of stage at different targets.
Oh, I gotcha.
So so there's because it's 2 guns, it opens up significantly more options in terms of how to shoot it. But because it's a little bit defined, where it's not UML, where it's like start anywhere with any gun and shoot the appropriate targets, which could mean like just about anything. It's enough defined that a new shooter can like read the stage brief and have like a reasonably good idea of like how to execute the stage.
It's interesting when I think novelty, like newness, plays into a lot of things that are exciting about shooting, and I like that things. I like the PCSL concept, but I will say that one of the things I really liked about UML was the options, and now I feel like options are getting too many, and maybe I don't know, maybe we went too far and like the pendulum swings back, kind of thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's kind of what I'm feeling.
Yeah. And that's one of the things too. It's like, I like options to a certain extent, which is like, okay, should I transition to the pistol here on this steel array, or should I plus up the shotgun and shoot more? Like a little option in a stage. I like that, but I don't want major matches to be won or lost on stage planning. Like I still want it to be a shooting competition. So that's, if I had to err one way or the other, if I had like all the options or none of the options, I'd honestly take none of the options, because I want everybody to shoot something reasonably similar. As opposed to, a good example is on some UML matches where it's not specifically in the stage description. They'll have like the popper with the flying clay and then a steel plate behind it. That's the optional target for PCCs.
Yeah.
On some of those, if they don't specify, then you can opt to just not have the flying clay as one of your targets and then shoot it with the pistol instead. So now you have two different people shooting the same stage, but with completely different targets on it, trying to go faster. And that's one of those, like, you know, the last example was, you know, I was shooting with Amax at one of the matches out here. You know, he asked that question. He's like, hey, do we have to shoot the clays or can we shoot the pistols? And the RO's like, well, I think you have to shoot the clays. And Amax is like, you said that T word.
Yeah.
Like, you know, I'd like to get the, you know, and then so because it wasn't in the stage description, those guys shot with pistol. And it turned out to be way faster than shooting the clays because there wasn't a whole transition to a shotgun and all this other stuff.
Plus, you don't have to wait for the clays. You don't have to plus up the shotgun.
All of that, right? And so, but that's one of those things where it's like, if you're a new guy, you have no idea that's even an option, right? So then it becomes very much like a stage planning match as opposed to a shooting match.
Yep. And that's my biggest complaint with options is that it just becomes a pistol match. And then why are we even bringing the fucking shotgun anyway? Sorry.
Yep.
I guess Kyle's swearing on the last episode wore off on me. It's my turn now.
I got all my F-bombs out of the way in the pre-interview.
Yeah. Effing boomers. But
exactly.
Yeah, I'm not a huge fan of, if you can call for a different target in a stage, I think that's like just a giant amount of horse shit. And it's a what am I trying to say? It's a concession for PCC. And as we all know, PCC does not belong in
PCC
3-gun.
ruined 3-gun.
So I think that's kind of silly. But on that note, like Max said that in the PCSL 2-gun championship that you could shoot PCC. It would just replace your carbine. Did you see anyone else shooting PCC out there? Yeah, there was a bit. And how'd it go?
Yeah, we can. I mean, just fine. So a few of the things. Well, let's just run through the gear rules here really quick, because I think that's going to open up a whole lot of questions and also kind of answer that one as well. But definitely it was a PCC-able match, and you can switch guns at any point. You can only shoot 2 guns on a stage, but if you have a PCC you want to shoot for the base stage stuff and then pull out the AR for the longer stuff, totally fine.
All right, I don't like that one either. I think that one's horse shit. Yeah, that one's fucking horse shit. Excuse my language. That's another problem with UML is like, oh yeah, I got my little bay gun for this, and then I got my long gun for that, and then I got my super long gun for this one over here. It's like, now you're bringing 9 guns. That's not shooter friendly.
And this is what I think. I agree with that because I'm not a fan. I like rolling up with one rifle and just shooting the match. The reason he did that was a couple fold. One was logistically, you know, in USPSA, your pistol goes down. You have to like get match director or range master approval to switch your pistol to another, you know. So he wanted to do away with all that because that's dumb.
So in that case, I think it's a good thing to allow substitutions.
Yeah,
but then I think us gamers take it too far, and then you bring like a golf club set of ARs to shoot a match.
Well, here's the thing, though. I don't think you would gain anything from it. And the reason is the longest rifle targets allowed in PCSL 2-gun, by definition in the rules, is 200 yards. So
sure, yeah. But in my example, I was using UML, but in your example, you were saying that you could swap from PCC to rifle. Do you think there's an advantage there?
Barely, because minimum target size is 8 minutes. So
that's a big target.
So you're really not gaining a whole lot. I mean, if I was shooting PCC for all the base stage stuff because I didn't have a 223 ammo and there was a 200-yard target, would I switch to an AR? Sure. Yeah. Does it really matter? No. Like, especially if you go full Leo Grandis on that and just put like 9 rounds in the air really quick and then run off like, while 3 of them peeing, you know?
So I don't know. I guess switching from, so if you're shooting 2-gun and you're shooting like a 223 carbine, and then you want to shoot a PCC on a base stage, I think that's a completely different game now.
I don't think you gain anything either way.
You don't think so?
I don't think so. Get looking at the way the stages were, looking at the.
Yeah,
the
I mean, you were there. I'm just speculating.
Yeah. No, I don't think you gain anything. And if you do, you get like it is a bunch of messing around to gain like a percent. I don't think that it's the difference between winning and losing, or maybe even the difference between two different places. And, while a couple of people did shoot PCCs, most people were just shooting ARs anyways, because most people just kind of like brought their kit, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, because in the original one, well, this is the thing, Max is a PCC guy. Obviously, he's won like 5 national championships shooting one.
Yeah, a
lot of people are using them, and they're starting to be a thing for like patrol rifles and things along those lines. Like JP sells a lot of GMR 15s to SWAT teams and stuff like that, because they make great entry guns with suppressors and things along those lines. So he wanted to allow that, but in a way that it wasn't like you have to have a PCC and a rifle because of whatever weird ruling thing, where it's like, hey, use whichever one, but there are going to be long range targets. You can switch around if you want, but the long range targets aren't going to be so much that you can't hit them. I mean, I had stage was probably the hardest shooting in it in terms of like long range difficult shooting. And the guys shooting PCCs didn't have any more or less problems than the guys shooting rifles.
Well, that's good to know. However, something just doesn't sit right with me about choosing a different rifle for a different stage, whether it's switching from a PCC to a 223 or, 223 to a 223 or whatever it is. Like, I just think that's dumb, because it forces you to, if you're going to be competitive, bring several guns with you. Now, I will say that, having substitutions because one fails makes a lot of sense.
I get that. I don't think it helps you be competitive. I think it's the same as people trying to buy talent.
Yeah, but as you know, people do that.
People do that, but that's their own damn fault, Dave. Like, I don't know what to tell you. So, anyways, aside from that, here's the divisions. So, practical division. So this is basically a gamer dude on the internet, SWAT guy, cop, former military showing up to the match, right? So he is trying to create a division that is closely mimics what they can have without putting them in any kind of really weird, just bumping them to open essentially. So here we go. For the carbine, max 30 round magazine for the rifle, which I am so excited about, because that means occasionally having to reload the rifle, which I think is a skill that should be practiced. So no coupled mags, no mag wells, none of that. Just 30 round mag, boom, done.
No coupled mags.
No coupled mags.
Nice. Bold move.
Now we're gonna get way into the weeds here real fast. So let's try to keep this a little bit under wraps. Muzzle brakes are prohibited. Flash hiders are fine. Now there's a bunch of combo type flash hider muzzle brake things. Mm-hmm. So here we go. Muzzle brake is defined as any muzzle device that features at least one set of externally visible baffles for which the uncompromising purpose is to reduce recoil force, not compensate for muzzle rise or act as a flash hider, which basically means if you can look through the side of it and see big baffles, then it's out. But if it's like a pinhole style muzzle brake, then it's fine. And then he has a list of examples of what is and is not allowed. And I would imagine that this right here is probably the most contentious thing in the entire deal. My idea was a 5-gallon bucket full of A2 flash hiders, and if you're in this division, you just throw one on your rifle. But of course, tendon welded barrels pretty much take that one right out.
I'm a member of a group on Facebook for the tactical games, and that is just a constant, just over and over and over again, is the muzzle device thing. And it's kind of hard. Like a lot of, we're talking about the tactical crowd, and most of my I guess, so I don't know what those guys do when they're not on Instagram or on YouTube. I don't know if they like go to the range and they practice together or something like that. And that's what I think is cool about the PCSL, is that it gives people a place to go and be and have that camaraderie and go and train and stuff. So that said, like, I don't know if there's groups out there that get together and discuss this kind of stuff, but the muzzle devices I see on like the YouTube videos and on Instagram and stuff, a lot of them are brakes. So now that said, if you're going down a hallway in a stack and you got a brake, you're not going to make a whole lot of friends.
No.
So I totally get that, but I'm just wondering like what the culture is in that space is anyway.
It's a really, really tricky one. And there's been a lot of conversations around that and how to, what constitutes a brake and what does not. I don't know where it's going to go in the future, but as it stands right now, this is what it is. The other thing is suppressors are allowed. And I would say ROing, I bet I saw 25% of the competitors had suppressors.
That's cool.
Which, as an RO, is really nice because right muzzle brake from rifles gets really old after a while. And like on the stage we shot, or that we RO'd, you had to shoot all your long range through a big like tractor tire. And it was loud in there if you did not have a suppressor. So the guys with the suppressor were like, wow, this is really nice. Then there's another stage where you shot some rifle through like a corrugated tube thing. And so like cans were pretty nice. I mean, cans were nice here in the same way that they're nice in the quote unquote real world. And it was really interesting to see that.
Yeah. The first match I started shooting outside of Lockheed Martin, which, was a private match and everything, was Weld County, and it was run by a guy who was super tactical, and so he hated all the gamers, and he would do punitive things for the gamers. And if we were shooting rifle, it like 9 times out of 10 it would be out of a that's maybe too much. 8 times out of 10 it would be through a tire or through a barrel or something like that. And something it's like
not fun to have a break.
Well, and then if you stop and think about it, you're like, okay, so you're discouraging the use of brakes for your competitors by causing them hearing damage. You asshole. Like that's not cool at all.
Yeah.
So but that said, like suppressor use is cool, and I like the normalization of suppressors. I think that's really exciting to see. What did they do as far as like mitigating burns and stuff when you dumped your rifle?
There wasn't any problems with it. The stages are about 50-50 whether you start with the pistol or rifle. There were definitely some stages where you start with the sling rifle. And then there was, of course, given those, there was half the stages where you start with the rifle and then dump it. But I don't think there was enough rounds through the rifle to really like make the suppressor hot enough to like light a dump barrel on fire or anything like that.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay.
So in that division as well, bolt carrier groups must be full mass bolt carrier groups. So no lightened bolt carriers, lasers, flashlights, suppressors, no restrictions on any of that. Optics, no restrictions, none whatsoever. So you want to run a 1-6 on top and an offset 45 red dot, totally fine.
What if I want to run a 1-10 up top and a 1-6 on the 45?
Doesn't matter.
Nice.
No restrictions. Yeah. I think you should run the new 6-36 Razor Gen 3 on top, and then the 1-6 on the side. I'm gonna rig that up. I'm gonna see if I can put that together.
I'll put that on my backup gun.
Yeah, put that on your backup gun. This is the do anything gun. So that's the rifle. Handgun. Basically, as a general rule, anything is good to go. Double stack mags up to 145 are totally fine. No compensators or barrel porting. Frame mounted optics are out. Slide ride optics are totally fine, even on single action guns. So you got a slide ride 9mm, STI, as long as it doesn't have holes in the barrel, totally good to go.
When you say 145 mags, you're talking about length, 145 millimeter. Is that correct?
Yeah. So like the standard limited mag length. Yeah.
Cool.
And this is even a little bit longer. I think standard USPSA mag length is like 141.283765.
Yeah.
Whatever. So this is actually a little bit longer because there are some like off the shelf mags that like just don't make it, but don't actually have any added mag capacity. So I think that's where the 145 came from.
Oh, that's cool. So, okay. So you're looking at basically like a carry optics pistol, but you could do a 2011 with a slide ride dot as well.
Yep.
And then your rifle is basically a duty rifle, and you can do lights and lasers and shit like that.
Yep. Exactly correct.
Huh. Awesome.
Yeah.
Sounds like fun.
Yeah. It's a freaking blast.
Sounds like the TAC division that I was talking about, except for the mags and the 45-degree sights.
Yep. Yeah, so it's pretty much like the Instagram tactical division, but a lot of that stuff is coming into, actual, SWAT and military and things along those lines. So it's, basically where that world's going. So the competition division, basically open. The only difference is bipods and bags are prohibited, which initially I was like, my standard quote of "we had sticks before we have rifles. Can we please put the rifles on the sticks?" So I was like, dude, what the F? But since the targets are no longer than 200 yards and no smaller than 8 minutes, and anytime there is a shooting position, there was always a very solid barricade or something to shoot off of. Totally not a problem. Like, I think it's fine.
That's pretty cool.
Yep.
So what's the no bags and bipods? Is that like a cost reducer? And
I asked Max, and he said he just didn't want it to be an accessory race where people felt like they had to fly to a match with, a duffel bag full of, the short and the tall and the kneeling bipod and a standing tripod and 7 bags for rooftops and all this other stuff. And he's just
and 2 different rifles.
2 different rifles.
No, that makes a whole lot of sense. So basically open. So pistol, we're talking about like the frame mounted dots, 170 millimeter mags, or is there a restriction on length of mag?
170 mil mags are fine. Full on open guns are fine. Like the competition pistol is just an open pistol.
And then
basically run whatever you want.
And so rifle, so you shoot a JP rifle, so your rifle basically falls into open there, right?
Yep, because I have a 14.5 with the pin and welded comp, light bolt carrier group.
And you can do D60s and all that?
Yeah, you can do D60s. You can go crazy. Competition division is essentially open division.
Cool.
Yep. And then I have in my sweet little hands here an advanced copy of the 3-gun rule set, which Max was kind enough to send me since we were doing this. And they are adding TAC Ops division to the 3-gun set. Because TAC Ops, is still the biggest division in 3-gun, and it kind of falls a little bit between these. So basically the gist is TAC Ops division is essentially TAC Ops as we know it. Like iron sights on the pistols, 2011.
D60s?
D60s, TAC Ops shotgun, 8+1, no porting, tube fed, all of that stuff. Like TAC Ops is TAC Ops, right?
So that's smart in a sense of like we want to get 3-gunners to come shoot our match, but that doesn't really fall into like the spirit of what we just listened to in the 2-gun divisions.
Well, there are still those other 2-gun divisions, and I think basically the reason for it is exactly that. It's like we want 3-gunners to come shoot our match, and the tricky thing is the practical division. So, what is a tactical shotgun? Like making a rule set around a tactical shotgun is really, really, really hard.
Nah, I got it.
So, all right. Well, let's see what your tactical shotgun division is, and then I will tell you what they did for this.
Well, so tactical. So the TAC Ops shotgun that I talked about is my proposal is 12 rounds, 12 round tube. So 13 basically. So 12+1. Load that bitch up. Let's shoot. Let's not download it. I don't care. Let's just go for it.
Okay. You're close. So, tube fed shotgun, mag capacity, 10+1. Start condition, 10+1. Porting fine. Optics fine. Single match saver fine. Side shell caddies are okay, but
optics are fine.
Optics are fine. Yep. Because a lot of tactical shotguns are like pumps with dots on them these days.
Yeah.
Right.
No. Yeah. So Aaron Hayes and I talked about that, and he tried to convince me to put red dots on shotguns, and I was like, yeah, go for it. I don't care. Like, because honestly, like when you stop and think about it, Adam, the IPSC rules already have a division for that, and so basically now you can go play on the world stage. So I like that.
Yeah, I'm fine with it. I mean, the only place where I think a red dot actually provides any kind of advantage on a shotgun is on slugs. I very honestly do not think a red dot is faster on a shotgun on any other kind of shotgun shooting. And I just got the tracking number. My new shotgun delivered like 40 minutes before we got on the phone. So
guess what you're doing afterwards.
Oh yeah, I'm gonna find out the answers to this question here pretty darn soon. But my guess is, shooting across flying clay, shooting across falling steel, that a dot on a shotgun is no faster at all.
Well, I will say that the first time that I shot, well, actually, shoot, I just found a video of that this morning. I should post it. The first time I shot a dot on a shotgun was Scott Green's Limcat, and that was like 4 years ago after SHOT Show.
And it was slower, wasn't it?
Well, I was like putting the dot directly in the center of the clay and squeezing the trigger, putting the dot directly in the center of the clay and squeezing the trigger. And he just behind me yelling, faster, faster. It's like, no, man. And then afterwards we had the conversation of like, yeah, that's zeroed for slugs, bro. Like you weren't even close.
Yeah.
And just use the pattern, which I totally understand. And honestly, like if that's actually what I was thinking. Like if we were to go to red dots on our shotguns in TAC, that's exactly what I would do. Is I would use it as a slug advantage, and then just basically eyeball it for everything else. Okay, so I want three gunners to come to my match. So I want three gunners to come to my match. So I'm going to make a tactical division, but I'm going to change the length of the tube.
No. The TAC division shotgun is still a 12-round tube.
I thought you said 10 round.
No. 10 round for practical.
Oh, so I misunderstood.
Yeah, so TAC shotgun is still TAC. Iron sights, no porting, tube length, whatever you want, but you start 8+1.
Okay.
Now, I want to say a few things here really quick because this is the unedited, hey, this is what I'm thinking, so you can tell Dave on the show.
So these are tentative.
So yeah, all of these things are tentative. Like they changed a few things even between the first match and the second match because this is the first year they've ever done it. And Max is walking around taking feedback from anybody who wants to say anything pretty much. But what he's not doing is saying, you want a division where you have to have a Red Ryder pellet gun. Sweet, we'll add that division for you. So he's still keeping it like, no, I understand where you're coming from, but like this is the vision that I have, which I really appreciate. So all of this is subject to change. And I've also said a lot of things like, I think the reason Max did this is because blah, 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 blah. I'm clearly not speaking for Max on any of this. So if you have any questions about Max's actual intentions, people, you should ask Max instead of taking what I think Max wanted to do as gospel.
Well, I didn't even know you were going to have the rules. I just wanted to hear your impression of the match and like what you thought of the whole format. So this is a nice bonus, pretty exciting. But again, everybody keep in mind that it is tentative, so don't go crazy on purchasing new gear or anything.
Yeah, for sure. So then other rules which were interesting. Coaching is, I'm going to put in air quotes, kind of allowed, where you can basically, there's essentially no coaching for, advanced shooters. If newer shooters are at a major match and they need coaching, you can coach them in a way that does not offer a competitive advantage. So it's sort of like if somebody ran past a target, you can tell them to come back. If somebody already engaged a long-range target, you can tell them, you already shot that, things along those lines. But you can't just like stand behind them and tell them their stage plan as they're shooting.
Stop screwing up.
Just
shoot faster.
Exactly. And then the scoring is a really interesting thing. So
let's
three-gun match.
Let's spend some time on scoring here. So. Are you going to tell? Are you just about to tell me that scoring for the three-gun match is different than the scoring for the other one?
Yes.
Max, come on, dude.
Well, tell Max. This
That's what I'm saying. I'm talking to Max. Max, don't put on a cookie cutter match. Give people a reason to go. Make it different.
So, three-gun is basically time plus, and then the two-gun match is essentially minor scoring. So if you haven't seen the targets already, it's there is a zone, a C zone, and a D zone, and then there is a K zone in the head, which is 75% of the size of the head, and then the whole target is significantly smaller than a USPSA target. So basically, if you were to chop the entire D zone off the bottom of a USPSA target, that's about how big the target is. And it even like tapers in from the bottom at a more aggressive angle. So I'd say on total, 60 to 70% the size of a USPSA target, maybe.
Yeah, if you're trying to picture it in your head, it looks like the upper of a USPSA standard target, then the lower of an IPSC target.
Yeah,
sandwiched together and then shortened.
Exactly. So pretty darn short, the same width as a regular target because it has to fit in target stands.
Do the targets look enormous to you, Adam?
All targets look enormous to me. I'm like, why is everybody so huge?
Why are we shooting giants?
Why are we shooting giants? I don't understand this. And then also, because the target is smaller, the size of all of these zones has gotten smaller. So the A zone on this target, I would guess is probably in the neighborhood of like 70% the size of the A zone on a USPSA target, probably even less, in fact. It's all the zones are significantly smaller. So when you combine that with minor scoring, and then you combine that with really low hit factor stages because there are gun transitions and long range rifle and a lot of movement and things like that, what you end up with is really low hit factor stages. This match averaged around a 4 hit factor stage for the winner. And let's do a little math here really quick. So if you're shooting a 4 hit factor stage, every Charlie you drop is a half second. So if you run past target and go, brah, and you shoot 2 Charlies on it, it's basically a 1 second penalty.
Whoa.
Yeah. So if you shoot a delta, let's see. So every 2 points is 0.5 seconds. The delta is, -4. So that's basically a 1 second penalty for shooting a delta. So very, fast, aggressive shooting, but also very, very accurate shooting. And maximum paper distance range is, it's in here somewhere. I believe it's 50 yards for the rifle and 25 yards for the pistol. So there's some pretty darn hard offhand rifle shooting at paper, around hard covers and no shoots and other stuff. And I mean, even if you don't have no shoots on it, the whole target's significantly smaller. So it's basically the size of a target with a no shoot on it anyways. So there's challenging shooting going on in this match for sure. There's really, really good shooters dropping a lot of points and shooting mics on stuff that you wouldn't expect really good shooters to drop points and shoot mics on.
That's really cool. Another thing that you and I have discussed in the past is we've seen like the kind of dumbing down of matches. So it's cool to see actual difficult things happening. But from the videos I've seen, it doesn't look like anything was unachievable. It just looks like it had to be done at an extreme speed and accuracy for you to win, but it doesn't look like unaccomplishable by someone who's new to the sport or something like that.
Yeah, so there's not going to be, some poor guy standing there dumping an entire Glock mag into a 25-yard mini popper.
Yeah.
There's going to be none of that, but it might be a 25-yard piece of paper that, requires essentially the same level of accuracy, but isn't going to force somebody to empty a whole mag until they hit it the way that a mini popper would go. So there's a lot of that where it's like, for the people who know, the shooting challenge is still very, very much there, and it's really hard technical shooting. But if you just look at the stage, you're like, oh wow, this is really simple. And then the other thing that they have going on is there's no minimum power factor, so you can shoot whatever you want. But the way that calibration works is all of the steel, with the exception of long-range rifle steel, is painted after every shooter. And the way calibration works is you shoot across an array and you hit that thing and you come back at the end and there's a clear mark on it and you're done. You hit the thing, I can see right there where the bullet impacted because we just painted it, and we don't need to call somebody to bring out a pistol and shoot it down and then reset it and then shoot it down again and then, all of that stuff. It's just if you shot it and your bullet hit, which is indicated by the paint, then you're good to go.
Awesome.
And I would say it was about it was about 50% falling steel and 50% ringing steel that were like those really thin steel challenge plates that let out a nice, very audible ring when you hit them. And it was the steel shooting was great. There wasn't any issue with calibration calls. And it was that part's fantastic, where it's not some, pockmarked popper and you're arguing with the RO whether or not you hit it, and then they got to stop everything for 15 minutes so the range master can come out and shoot it down with this pistol and then
give you that shit-eating grin.
Yeah, exactly. Like, you should have shot major. I'm like, well, no.
Yeah, shoot your bunny fart loads. Exactly. Goddamn 3-gunners.
Exactly. And then as an RO, you are allowed to say hit if like a newer shooter's moving through and, hit something that didn't fall down and, they're like coming back to it or something. You are allowed as an RO, to just yell like hit and they can move on.
Huh. Okay.
Yeah. Which is pretty darn nice, I thought.
Well, so let's back up a sec. You said that the multi-gun rules were going to be different.
So multi-gun rules are basically different in
for scoring.
For scoring, yeah. So it's time plus essentially. There's going to be designated shotgun targets. Those are painted gray. So white is rifle, blue is pistol, gray is shotgun. You can shoot paper with shotgun slugs. So that is, a little bit of an optional thing, which I've like literally once in my entire shooting career seen a stage where it's actually beneficial to shoot paper with shotgun slugs, but you can do it. And it's basically a C or better neutralization on that. And then on the time plus scoring, so the K zone, so in the hit factor or the points per second scoring, which I like that he called it that since that's what it actually is, and it makes things a lot more simple to explain to people. But in the points per second scoring for the 2-gun and the 1-gun matches, the K zone basically counts as 2 alphas. So if you shoot the head box once, and the head box is probably about twice the size of it, like the credit card slit in like a normal USPSA target, it's 75% of the head or something. If you shoot that once, you're done. You get your 10 points for your 2 alphas. You don't have any mics, nothing like that. In the time plus scoring, it's the same thing. So it's essentially instead of 2 anywhere or 1 alpha that you'd normally get in most matches, it's 2 anywhere or 1 kilo. So you still can get the 1-shot neutralization, but it's a significantly harder shot than it is on a regular USPSA target.
Gotcha. So, Adam, let me ask your opinion then. Stop looking at your papers. This is not for notes. This is opinions.
Okay. I'm staring deep into your eyes.
Staring deep into Skype.
Lay it on me.
So, why? Okay, not why. How do you feel about the rules being different between the 2-gun and the 3-gun? Like, for all the excitement I just had for something new, it's now I'm looking at just a match that is a 3-gun match, but now in St. George. Mm-hmm. So I'm questioning why it's time plus. I'm questioning why the addition of TAC Ops versus the other 2 divisions. And so not trying to be a curmudgeon or anything, but just like if you're going to have something new and you want to champion something new, like why go backwards? I mean, I guess everything goes back to money, right? You want to fill butts in seats, but that doesn't seem like it's quite the spirit of what the Practical Competition Shooting League was intended. And your opinion, don't speak for Max.
So this is okay. If I was king for a day, if I was taking Max's place here, I would keep TAC Ops, and I think that is in keeping with the spirit of it, because the spirit I don't think it's not putting butts in seats, it's inclusivity. That I think is what really drives it, right? Where it's like when you take the practical or the competition division rules, everybody who shows up is with TAC Ops gear, which, most 3-gun shooters are shooting TAC Ops still, not by a lot anymore, but most. All of those people are going to get bumped to open because they all have a comp and or light bolt carrier group on their rifle, which means open. None of them have a mag-fed shotgun, which means severe disadvantage.
I gotcha.
I feel like that one makes sense to me. In terms of we want to bring new people into the sport, but we don't want to completely alienate, 60% of the current 3-gun shooters that are out there. So that makes perfect sense.
Okay. I'm with you now. That makes sense.
Okay.
Now tell me about why different scoring.
Don't know. I would stay with the hit factor scoring or the points per second scoring.
Because that seems fun. Like that seems like one of the more interesting things that I've talked about with people that have shot the match is that it is a different scoring method.
So this is the one thing that I can really think of is that if you add in a third gun, so now you have another gun transition, and then you have shotgun targets, which are generally speaking slower to shoot down, the hit factor is going to drop even more. So if it's a 3 hit factor stage, now every Charlie is 0.6 seconds. If it's a 4 hit factor stage, or it's a 2 hit factor stage, I haven't even done the math on it, but it's got to be getting pretty close to a second penalty for every single Charlie, right? So one of the things that, when Max asked for feedback, one of the things that I said was major scoring instead of minor scoring, because the hit factors are so low that the penalties start getting so egregious on the longer stages or stages with more movement or long range rifle. Like if you shoot, there was one of the stages where nobody broke a 3. So, if you're shooting a Charlie on something like that, or a couple Charlies, like that can add a significant amount of time to your score. So it really slows down the shooting in some cases, or, it should essentially. So my argument was for essentially major scoring, or maybe like a hybrid thing where instead of 5 for an alpha, 3 for a Charlie, and 1 for a delta, it was 5 for an alpha, 4 for a Charlie, and 1 for a delta, where like delta is super duper hurt, but dropping a Charlie doesn't hurt as much. So if I was king for a day, I would do it something like that, and then I would keep it in the 3-gun, because I do really like as much as I love just like spraying down a bunch of paper as fast as I can, I do really like the points per second scoring in this. So I don't know what Max's reason for that was. He's a pretty smart guy. I'm sure he had a good reason for it. I don't think it was because he got lazy and just said, "Oh, the hell with it. We're just going to make it like all the other 3-gun matches." I'm pretty sure he has a very legitimate reason.
I would never imply that either Max was lazy or hadn't thought about something, because those are not characteristics of Max.
No, they very much are not.
But I will say that everyone that I've spoken to that has shot the PCSL, bar none, has independently mentioned how much they like the scoring.
Yeah, everyone's pretty stoked on it. And so I don't know what the reasoning for it is. It might be because this is the first year that there's actually a full 3-gun match.
Yeah.
And he's kind of trying to like ease people into it. Maybe it's that. Maybe it's because he's worried that the hit factors are going to be so low that it's going to make every Charlie like a 2-second penalty or something. I'm really not sure, but I would like the scoring to stay points per second scoring, because I think it would be awesome.
So all that scoring though is completely arbitrary. You can just assign different numbers to it. It's not like there's some sort of natural way or natural scoring method. Just make it up. It's a new game.
The thing that I would like, like I said, if I was king for a day, I would basically make it like kind of a hybrid major minor scoring, where the Charlies were 4 but the deltas are still 1, and keep that with everything. Because what I wouldn't want is a points per second scoring system that were different for the two. I feel like that would be way more than just having one of them be time plus and one of them be points per second.
Yeah, I'll be honest, like the figuring out like what to do on a stage is a skill and an advantage, and for someone like me who's not really great at doing math quickly in my head, it's a disadvantage, right? So honestly, that's why I like 3-gun scoring, just plain old 2 really anywhere.
Easy. Yeah,
because it's pretty damn easy. But then I think a better step above that would be IDPA scoring, for lack of a better term. Just down 1, down 2, down 3, or whatever. That's not so bad. And I guess the points per second really makes a lot of sense, because it is literally points per second. But why? Granted, that's a standard in IPSC and USPSA, but that's just because it's the way we've always done it. And if you're going to create your own new world. Create it how you want it.
Well, I don't know. I mean, he doesn't
Whole
have to reinvent
new
everything.
world.
Well, and the other thing is the stages are each have a point value that is dedicated or that is determined based on the number of targets. So the stage is essentially worth the same amount of points that are available on the stage, which means that big stages are worth more than small stages, sort of like in USPSA. So it's not that like 100 points per every stage thing. So that's something to take into consideration as well.
Interesting.
Yep, which I think is a very good thing. I don't think that a 10-second stage should be, or there weren't any 10-second stages. Stage times in the two-gun match, I looked them up. The winning stage times ranged from 35 to 60 seconds. So
for the whole match?
Yeah. So the fastest stage is right about 35. The slowest stage is right about 60 for for the winner. Yep.
I gotcha.
Yep.
Hey, you remember Total Time?
Yep. Where if you had one bad malfunction on a stage, you were completely hosed and had no chance of climbing back.
And the only stage that mattered was the long range stage.
Yep.
Yeah, that was fun.
That was fun. God, I hated that match. What's your time so far? I'm at 283 seconds. Oh hell, I had pistol malfunction, so I'm done.
Yeah, so I'm packing up and going home.
Yeah, exactly. I had a stage. Actually, the first stage of this match, for anybody who saw my Instagram, I didn't have a particularly good match because I had some ammo issues left over from a previous gun that I was then shooting in the CZ, and basically made a bunch of mistakes that were entirely my fault, which caused a bunch of take the gun apart level malfunctions where it had bullets stuck in barrels and things like that. So I actually zeroed the very first stage in the match. And I remember one guy,
not funny.
Dude came by. No, it was actually hilarious. A guy came by on our stage and he's like, "Oh man, I've been all over the place today. I have a 80% and I have a 60%." And I was like, "Dude, I have a stage win and 2 zeros. Like, I don't want to hear that." It's like, I'm covering both ends here. But everyone was like, "Oh man, that's really, tragic." But I also like shot a penalty on one of the swinging targets and some things like that. I had a bunch of like kind of bad stuff all happen on the same stage. And the interesting thing with any sort of like non-total time scoring is you're way better off to have all of your bad things happen on the same stage than spreading them out throughout you can recover from one totally wrecked stage, but you can't recover from a bunch of mistakes throughout the match. So everyone's like, "Well, you're screwed. You started off with a 0. I'm like, I mean, it's not great, but I'm okay because it's not going to happen on every stage. And then it kind of happened on every stage. So I turned out to be very wrong.
But very optimistic.
But very optimistic. Yeah. I was like, oh, that was weird that my gun did that. That definitely won't happen again. Yeah, that was a little rough.
I've changed nothing, but I'm sure everything will be fine.
Yep, exactly.
So let's talk about the match then. How did you like it?
I honestly thought it was the best match I've shot in several years.
Yeah.
Like, no shit. It was fantastically good. The stages were just great. Like the combination of, technical, if you know what you're looking at, but at first glance, very simple, lots of options, but nothing that if you didn't see it is going to like totally destroy your match. Close shooting, far shooting. I love shooting like super duper hard, long range shots. So I was kind of missing that a little bit, but at the same time on a hit factor or a points per second stage, you don't want to have a target that's going to take you, 5 seconds to engage and every miss is going to be 2 seconds, right? Because the hit factor is going to be 1 by the time you're done with the thing. So I think the 200-yard max and the 8-minute of angle max makes a lot of sense in this context. And then a lot of people, in the practical division are shooting red dots because that's what they have on the rifles. And they, they don't want to make it so hard that you can't shoot it with a red dot or a PCC, Dave. The staff was super nice. I staffed it. Jalise and Justine Williams staffed it. A bunch of, Russell C, who's a great RO. Max pulled like a really, really good group of ROs for this. Treated the staff really well. I mean, like, paid staff, so is able to kind of like pick and choose and get really good people. And the production value is great. I was there for like kind of the second half of the setup, and painting we made new dump boxes at the beginning and painted them all. Painted all the barrels, painted all the walls, painted all the fault line. Like everything looked really, really nice. Like the best production value of any match I've ever been to, honestly. Like just looking around, it didn't look like a dirt pit with a bunch of random stuff pulled out of a dump, posted up as barricades and stuff. Like everything looked really good.
That's what I really enjoyed about the Three Gun Nation matches, is they painted everything before the match. And so it looked like you're going to an event instead of just shooting off of someone's car that they drug out. Yeah.
And I mean, don't get me wrong, there were some shot up cars in the car stage, but you can't find non-shot up cars. So, and the really interesting thing was just half of the match was people that I didn't know at all. I'm so used to going to three gun matches after, several years in the sport and knowing 80% of the people at the match. And I bet probably 60% of the people at this match I'd never seen before. And there were some really, really good shooters that were like tactical dudes from Arizona who just go practice on Instagram, and, like dudes that you've never heard of that would roll on up and, rocking all the tactical out gear and just like crushing because they're super good, but they just don't have the opportunity to actually put those skills to the test in any kind of competition environment. And I mean, a couple of those dudes placed in the top 5 and like did exceptionally well. And it was awesome to see all that stuff and, see you guys rolling around like their full kind of like battle ready kit and shooting basically 3 gun stages with 2 guns and, and having a great time. Like I can't think of, even when I tried to give AMAX a foot fault, I did not see anybody who was just not having a great time. Like everybody there was having a good time. So yeah, like, well, a good example. So the stage that I had, at the end of the stage, there was some long range that you shot through a tire. So you had to take kind of like a weird kneeling position through a tire. And because the stage fed from the left coming into the tire, when we stapled down the fault lines, we basically did it in a way that would completely screw anybody who was left-handed. And we weren't thinking about it because we're jackasses and we don't think about those poor guys that never got the pencil put in their other hands. So AMAX shoots the stage, posts up on the right side of the tire. The fault line, instead of being super generous there, is really tight, like a 45-degree angle. And AMAX, sticks his foot over the fault line and shoots. And so we get done, and I'm like, hey, like, bad news, you foot faulted here, like, I have to give you a penalty. And it's like, okay. I thought that with the rope fault lines, like, you couldn't, that you could be pressing into it. And I'm like, well, you can, but you were over by a lot. And he's like, okay. Like, and I was like, well, would you like me to call Max? And he's like, yeah, sure. And so Max comes down and he's like, well, what happened? I was like, this happened right here. And he's like, oh yeah, that's fine. No penalty. And that was it. Cause it was like, it's not, oh, like, was his foot touching it? Cause screw that guy. And it was like, hey, was there really any advantage to this at all? Did he gain anything by foot faulting? Like, no. In fact, the stage was set up to completely screw him and basically like give a huge advantage to everybody else. So like, it's one of those things where it's like, we're not going to completely trash some dude's match for, something where some guy got screwed by some situation. So, and part of that too, there's stage DQs in this match for, a handful of things. Like if you drop an empty gun, it's a stage DQ. It's not a match DQ. So if you shoot if you're shooting your pistol and your rifle sling breaks, which I've seen happen multiple times.
That's a stage DQ?
That's a stage DQ. It's an empty gun hitting the ground. And in most other matches, it's a full match DQ.
So my opinion, if you're interested, that should be a pick it up and go.
Fair enough.
Because we've identified that it's an empty gun and it's a stick.
Yeah.
Because if I can unsling my rifle by swinging it around and covering the entire crowd with my muzzle, I should be able to drop it and pick it up and run.
Fair enough. I can get behind that.
That's my opinion.
So, All right. Well, call Max and tell him to fix that. What were the other things? Holstering. So you can reholster guns if you don't want to dump in a dump box, and you can find some reason not to do it. There weren't any in this match that like made any sense. A couple people did reholster guns, but I don't think it really gained anything. But if you reholster your gun without engaging a manual safety that exists on the gun, then that's a stage DQ. And then keeping your finger on the trigger while you're moving, reloading, clearly not engaging targets is a stage DQ as well, which is a match DQ in most other matches. Yeah. So a way to give people kind of a slap on the wrist for something that could potentially turn into something that's not safe but isn't unsafe in its own right. So everything about the match is really designed to maintain competitive equity, make sure everyone's having a good time, and bring people into competition shooting who normally don't have a space for like actual competition shooting.
I think that's really cool. The practical edge of it. And, you mentioned the targets only being 250, which, excuse me. I think in 3-gun, we just end up pushing them farther and farther away for no good reason. Mm-hmm. And like, is a 545-yard shot with a AR really practical for most of us? Maybe for guys who've been deployed to Afghanistan and stuff. But if you're talking about like the practical edge of it, I think 250 is like the limit of what you would actually practically shoot in any sort of civilian or whatever situation.
Well, let's face it, if you're a civilian taking a 250-yard shot on a person, that's not self-defense anymore. You're going to prison. So.
I could think of some reasons, but well, even when you're talking about the police, like Amax and I went to a sniper competition, and it was all military and police except for Amax and I. Mm-hmm. It was a really weird situation. Yeah, it was kind of fun. But so we were asking these guys individually, just every now and then, like, what's the max shot that you would be asked to take? And no one said anything more than like 75 yards.
Yeah, I saw a stat a while back that was like the average sniper from like the actual sniper on a SWAT team. The average sniper shot for SWAT teams in the United States was something like 60 yards.
Yeah. Yeah, and I should clarify that was police. That wasn't the military guys. Military guys, they just whatever. But which is weird because we're shooting hostage takers in a school bus at 600 yards or something like that, and then these guys are like, "Yeah, we would never shoot. We wouldn't even do this at 50 yards."
Yeah. Well, and so the other thing is, I mean, going back to like the reasons, sort of like the main reasons for the match, the competitive equity part, as soon as you start having really long engagements with the rifle, competitive equity goes right out the window if anybody gets stuck with some wind.
Yeah.
Right. It's like shooting that 500-yard C zone with steady wind from a good spot, like totally fine. As soon as it's blowing 15 miles an hour with a 223, that's a completely different shot than it was for the guys who shot that morning.
Yeah, my truck gun, I could pull that out of my back seat and shoot 250 yards, no problem, with whatever ammo's in there, and I'm not even sure that was the ammo I used to zero it.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
But you can't do that at 550 yards,
No, not at all a thing.
So that's kind of cool. I like that aspect of it.
There is a place for the longer rifle stuff though, because so Matt, like you said before, Max is doing a whole bunch of different matches next year, and there's actually 7 majors on the schedule right now. So in March, there is a carbine match and a carbine after dark. So they're actually on the same weekend, but if you want to shoot a night match, it's a different match. So it's just, lights on the rifle. We'll shoot everything after it gets dark, but it's not like Surefire where it's like part of the match. It's a totally separate match.
Yeah.
So you can shoot one or other or both. Then in May, there's the 3-gun match. Then in July, there's the 2-gun showdown. Then in August, there's a PCC match. Then in November, there's a rifle match, and I'll get back to that in a second. Then in December, there's the 2-gun championship. Now, notice that both of the 2-gun matches were not called championship because if everything is a championship,
nothing is a championship.
Exactly. So I do appreciate that. The July match is like, this is a fun, big match. And the December match is, this is the championship.
Yeah, I like that too.
And then the rifle match is different than the carbine match. So the rifle match is ARs still and some base stagey type stuff, but this one will have a significant amount of very long range shooting in it. So all the stuff that we're talking about.
What's very long range?
I think Max said potentially to 600 yards.
Oh, okay.
So, and you can have bipods on the gun in competition division. So some things kind of open up in terms of like being able to shoot at that distance. But it is much more like, traditional 3-gun rifle from like Hard as Hell or Iron Man or something like that, where you're, expected to really stretch the limits of a 223 on a good significant portion of the stages, but also a bunch of like, base stagey hosey type stuff thrown in there as well. So, yes. And I don't know. I can't imagine that that's going to be a hit factor match, given the way that would have to be some sort of time plus. I would think, because anything where there's rifle shooting that's that hard, the hit factor on everything is going to be 1.
Right.
So I would imagine that's probably going to be into that world. But yeah, so there's, kind of whatever you want to do. He's got a little bit for you.
Dude, I'm going to call you an evangelist then of the PCSL, because you seem like really excited about this.
Well, I'm also really excited because it's 4 hours away from my house, and we've lost a lot of major matches in the West in the last few years. So really, for very selfish reasons, I really want Max's matches to really take off. But also for very non-selfish reasons, I want these to take off because I really do think they're awesome. And I really don't like that, us versus them thing that we have going on inside the shooting industry, where it's like the gamer guys over here and the Timmy guys over there, and everybody's making fun of each other. And, it's like, don't get me wrong, I appreciate some like good old fashioned shit talk, but, at the end of the day, like we're all shooting just about the exact same thing. We're all trying to shoot fast and accurately. We're all trying to get better. We all want to know where we stand. And I think trying to bring those two communities together in one shooting event is awesome. And I've never seen anybody actually try to do that, other than like, hey, all you Timmys should come out and shoot with us. Oh, by the way, that shotgun that you have isn't even going to kind of sort of cut it.
Yeah.
So, you're gonna have to get all of our stuff. But
I would say on the whole opposite end was Kalash Bash a couple years ago, where the competition guys were not treated very well by some people there. Mm-hmm. It was kind of the opposite. It's like, oh, this must be what it's like.
Yeah. And so to have something that's like very specifically designed to combat that entire understanding of the way everybody goes together is awesome, I think.
Yeah, that's really cool. I'm pumped about the thing. Unfortunately, much farther away for me than it is for you. Hey, Max, look at Cameo. Check that one out.
Cameo's nice, dude. That's a good shooting.
Cameo's nice. Have you shot up there?
I have. I shot the Governor's Cup up there last year.
No, you didn't.
I guess
that was Casper is what you're talking about. Cameo is in Grand Junction, Colorado.
Oh, never mind. I'm too far post coffee, apparently.
Yeah. Well, I figure
Cameo is fantastic, and I'd take that too. Also 4 hours from my house. Yes,
that's 4 hours. See, that's 5.5 hours. Okay, we got to find somewhere that's equidistant so we can just meet in the middle.
Okay, Parma.
That's not equidistant.
Is it?
We got to think closer. Let's screw it. Let's go Cameo.
Okay, Cameo it is. I mean, in Max's defense, it's like a 10-minute drive to this range, or probably significantly longer than 5 hours to Cameo from where he's at.
Oh, I'm sure.
There's not a direct route from. If you're driving south out of Utah, you take a very hard left about an hour in to go to Cameo, and you drive in a straight line for 3 hours to go to St. George. So they are not close to each other.
No, I know that, and I'm only joking around. Just because where I'm at in the world right now, the routes to get to St. George for the winter kind of blow. Yeah, and there's I don't know.
Flights to Vegas are super cheap, dude.
then you got to go to Vegas. Okay, so
understand.
then I got to drive. I got to drive to Denver, go to DIA, get on a plane, go to Vegas, get a rental car, drive over to St. George. No, so there's a lot of more logistics into it, but that's just for me personally. I do understand, like, St. George is a great place. It's a great place to shoot. I've shot a ton of matches over, at SUPs, and that was really fun. The area is beautiful, and I understand this range is really close to it as well. It's just like, I'm looking at March. It's like, am I going to be in 2 feet of snow? Is I-80 going to be closed for the 2 weeks that March 4th through 6th is?
It's definitely going to be closed in March, yes.
Yeah.
That's the scariest road I've ever driven every time I drive it.
Same.
Well, what you should do, Dave, is start your own shooting organization. It can be the Dave Shooting Sports Confederation. And
no, it looks like Max has it knocked. I just convinced him to hold a match up here.
Or you can hold a match up there with his rule set.
Well, it's funny because you look, yeah, exactly. I could do that for sure. But I'm just saying, like, if you look at what's on the calendar, so the one that just happened was in December.
Yep.
So that's coin toss. Are you going to get screwed? And then March, pretty much definitely going to get screwed if you're coming from my area. Now, that's just me. If you're coming from other parts of the country, it's going to be fine. If you're coming from California, it's going to be fine, etc. But I do remember, that was like 2015, I think, or maybe it was 16. My shooting buddy Bill and I, it was 2016. In March of 2016, my shooting buddy Bill and I went to a class at SUPS. It was the very second 3-gun class that they offered because Craig Outson had all kinds of great Adam Reiser stories before I even knew Adam Reiser. But anyway, on the way back, Bill and I got stuck on Vail Pass for hours, just sitting idling in his car while they had to plow the thing. So I'm just saying, for me specifically, where I'm at now, it's a logistical issue. So
fair enough. I mean, that sounds like I live in the middle of Wyoming and I moved out of the sticks, and so now I don't have any of the advantages of living in a city anymore. Problem. There's some pretty serious advantages to living in the sticks too, though.
Yeah. I mean, if you look at the last 2 years, I'm glad I lived in the sticks. Yeah. I'm super glad I did not live in Colorado, 100%. And I'm pretty glad I didn't live in Round Rock. So,
definitely.
Yeah. But I'm sorry, that's just way too much on that. But anyway, so
this is how I feel about when I hear about matches in Texas. I'm just like, God, I just really don't want to get on a plane. But
I'm fine with getting on a plane. It's just you have to understand there's 4 planes involved for me to get there.
Yeah, I understand.
So I
get you.
The other weird thing is, so you can now take never mind. Fuck it. I don't want to talk about Cheyenne anymore. Let's talk about training. So how do you train specifically for this type of match compared to how you would normally train for a 3-gun match?
I would basically train exactly the same, except I would score my practice runs. So I would drills, and instead of being, I shot whatever this distance change-up drill was or something, I would shoot it and then I would score it points per second. So you can just go into practice score and, just build a quick stage. Like, this stage has 3 targets and it's minor, and you just put it in there, and I would score it after every run, which is exactly what I did before going into this match. And, on the stages where my gun ran front to back, I shot really well. And so it worked just to, like, hey, let's go in and do some distance change up. Let's do some build drills. Let's do some doubles. Let's do a little bit of shooting on the move at different distances. Some position entries, just like some really, standard kind of drills, except let's score them and see at what point, when it comes to shooting aggressively and dropping points, does my score actually start dropping? Because there is definitely a spot where, if you just like, I can't drop any Charlies because it's a 3 hit factor stage and they're going to be, 5 or half a second each, then you're sure not going to shoot the stage fast enough for it to be a winning stage run or even close. But if you're just like, I'm going to shoot at 3-gun speed where it's just 2 anywhere, you're not going to shoot enough points to get stage wins. So there is a middle ground there, and you just have to understand where that is at certain distances. So the basically what I did was I did exactly the same practice that I always do, except I just set up a little practice score stage in the app. And then every time I would shoot a drill, I would just punch in my points really quick to see what my points per second would have been, and then adjusted there. And I kind of did it both ways, where I was like, let's shoot both ends of this. And, it's like shoot it completely balls to the walls and just send hopers down there and see what it is. Now I'm going to shoot all alphas and see what it is. Now I'm going to start shooting a little bit more aggressively and see where my, how fast I can go before my points start dropping off to the point where it doesn't make any sense to shoot it in that way anymore. And just understand the difference between that. If you're already like a USPSA shooter, then you already should have a really good sense of what that is, and then you just have to apply it to the rifle as well.
I got it. Okay. Did you print out the practice target that Max has available?
No, I didn't. I had a box of those UML hexagon targets, and I just used those. And that because it doesn't. I don't think it matters so much. Although I do have to say I do have a real hard time whenever I go to USPSA or Max's new PCSL targets that I have a hard time dropping Charlie's low because I shoot in the center of the brown, because that's where the A's, because the UML is just a giant bullseye essentially. So I'm still shooting basically A's, but I'm dropping like 2 close Charlies right below the A zone. So I do that a lot. So I do want to get some of the targets or some targets in general that have kind of that offset high A zone where you're sort of shooting around the shoulders a little bit more.
Yeah, then, I have a problem with the IPSC targets. I always forget like where exactly the scoring zone is on those. I have to always walk up and imprint it into my memory.
Yeah, as a general rule, I would say the IPSC targets are probably the closest approximation to these. Like they don't have a head box, but I think they're closer shape and size and everything to Max's targets than anything else that's out there right now. So that'd be a really good way to go. And Max is trying to make his targets available. So he had a bunch at the match that you could buy for people who wanted to take some home and use them to practice. And then he's trying to work with some vendors right now to get them available so you can just order them.
Got it. Yeah, and I do see every now and then he'll post a link to the one he has available. I imagine it's on the website somewhere.
Yep, for sure.
Which is PCSLeague.com if you're looking for that. Mm-hmm. Good stuff. All right. Well, okay, so we've covered completely rule set top to bottom. We've covered the match that you shot, the two gun championship, and we talked about training. Anything else you want to impart before we say?
The shoot off that Max did was
shoot. I'm sorry.
Yeah, so this is your one job, Dave. Well, I mean, it wasn't your one job, but you could have saved all of that time ranting about living in Colorado, and we could have covered the shoot off instead. But
Wyoming. I live in Wyoming.
Okay, well, that's better. Anyways, so the shoot off that he did was really interesting. So the shoot off had nothing to do with it did not change the match score. So the shoot off was post awards. So you shot in the morning of Sunday, then awards and lunch, and then the shoot off afterwards for anybody who wanted to hang around for it. And it was top 6 in each division. And the top 3 ladies, I believe it was. Maybe it was the top 4. Not 100% sure. But everybody went to one stage and then shot that stage like a squad, basically. And then the top, I think it was 3 or 4 moved on to the next stage. And then everybody shot that stage. And then the top 2 moved on to the last stage. And then everybody shot that stage. And pretty darn sweet prizes for anybody who made the top 3 in that. And it was a totally separate thing. Your match placement got you into the shoot-off, but there was a few people who were like, dude, I have to go. Like, I can't stick around. And they pieced out. And then, instead of the top 6, it became the top 7. And they dropped, the 4th place guy or whatever the case was. So, and it was really cool. And it was on the stages that, same stages that we shot during the match. So people who were, let's say this is your first match and you squatted with a bunch of your buddies. There was a squad, the entire squad was a bachelor party that flew into Vegas, did a bunch of shit, and then all rented one bus and drove down and all squatted together. And the whole squad was this bachelor party going from stage to stage. They were my heroes. They're so awesome.
Wow, that sounds like fun.
So if you're like those dudes and this is like your first major match, it's a good opportunity to get to watch that level of shooter shoot the stages that you just shot, and like see what that really looks like. And it was super cool. It was I like shoot-offs, but I don't like shoot-offs that make people have to leave the range at 9 o'clock that night.
Yeah.
So this was, from a time standpoint, way shorter. It wasn't mandatory. So if you placed 6th and you didn't shoot the shoot-off, you weren't automatically going to get dropped to 10th or something. People who wanted to go to awards and then peace out could. It was a really cool way to do it. I really liked it.
Yeah, so I've not heard of that format before, but that sounds really awesome because it's contained on one area that you can shoot it on, and then it's like elimination style. So it's like a Survivor, just like or maybe the weakest link. You're the weakest link. Get out of here.
Yep.
Everybody else is moving on. I like that. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, it was super good. It was a good time.
Good stuff. All right, Adam. We've been all over the place. We've covered a lot of things. We know how hard it is to leave Cheyenne, even though Garth Brooks wrote a song about it years ago. One last thought or piece of advice or something you want to tell the audience before we go.
Go try new things. This is it's different slightly than all of the things, and it's really, really, really awesome. I highly recommend it. Try this or any other new thing. Go try new things.
Sweet. All right. Well, I'm gonna load up my my horse on my snowmobile and try to make it out for one of the matches. At some point, we'll do it. And yeah, sounds cool. It sounds like a really cool format. It seems to like the people that have shot it are super excited about it. And yeah, I mean, you just filled 90 minutes of talking about it nonstop. So you're obviously pumped as well.
I'm stoked. It's a good time. Can't wait for the spring.
Very cool. Well, thanks for being here, Adam. Thanks for reaching out and recommending the topic, and really enjoy having you on the show, and enjoyed hearing about the matches and everything. And for everybody else, thanks for listening. We'll see you on the range.